This isn't a typical drama story, but rather a story about how a happy soon-to-be mother of two lost her life at just 26 years old from her child's father. Now, for context, the story hit the local news back in 2023, but it's only hit the greater public consciousness this year because the police have finally found the alleged perpetrator, or shall I say perpetrators. Now, the story has it that the child's father recruited two other people to enact the heinous crime, and what makes this story even more horrifying is the fact that this 26-year-old woman was due to be induced to give birth that same day.
It's at the Hidden Meadows apartment complex where officers say they found the body of India Kinnamore on Saturday morning around 5 a.m. Kinamore was 26 years old, and police say she was in the late stages of her pregnancy. Her social media posts indicate she may have had just a few weeks left before giving birth, and neither India nor her soon-to-be child survived the shooting.
So you might be asking yourself, what kind of people would do such a thing and why? Why would an expectant father, who, mind you, has been rumored to already have had a child, including a daughter at that, think to murder the woman who was carrying his son? Well, tonight, we will begin to uncover exactly that. This is the story of India Kinnamore. Now, India was born in Cincinnati, Ohio on May 12, 1996, and had what I can assume was a regular girl's childhood. From Facebook posts, it's safe to infer that she grew up around a lot of friends and family, and she was active and involved in her community. On India's Facebook page, she stated that she'd attended Bowling Green State University, located in Bowling, Ohio. In 2016, India was about 19 years old, turning 20, when she had her first child, a son named Zion. Images on her Facebook suggest that she'd had the child with an ex-partner. So let's quickly fast forward to 2023. Now, India was not shy about letting the world know that she was expecting her second child. She posted on TikTok and she shared videos of her baby bump along with pictures of her baby shower. Clearly, this was an exciting time in her life, and who can blame her? The miracle of life is a beautiful sight to see. And it's obvious that she found a lot of purpose in being a mother. Now, we can't confirm the exact timeline of her relationship with the father of her unborn child, but it was clear that for a few years, at least prior to her set due date, that she was in a relationship with him. So who was the father of this unborn child? His name is Kayvon Warren. India's story could have ended with a baby shower, a newborn's first cry, and a mother's smile, but instead it ended in tragedy at the hands of the alleged killer, her child's father, Kayvon Warren. On March 4th, 2023, police responded to a 911 call from India's home in Colleran Township. Reports say that the call came in between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. to the Hamilton County Dispatch Center, with the caller reporting that India had been shot and that the gunman had entered the home through the back door. When officers arrived minutes later, India was pronounced dead at the scene. At the time of the shooting, it was reported that India had been asleep in her bed with only her 6-year-old son at home with her. In shock and frankly traumatized, little boy Zion had phoned his grandmother telling her, "Somebody shot my mommy." For India's family, the nightmare only had just begun. As officers started doing their jobs and taping off the homes, beginning their investigation, the family was crushed at the fact that their beloved daughter, friend, cousin, and mother was just gone. But the looming crowd of what happened or who did this to India still remained. For more than 2 years, that question hung heavy in the air, haunting India's family as they searched for any semblance of a clue or direction. India's case went cold. There were no arrests, no clear suspects, nor any real motive that anybody could prove. But as the saying goes, everything that happens in the dark eventually comes to light. It was like a painful sigh of relief, but this year, in the year of 2025, justice finally came knocking. The police announced back in August 21st to be exact, that they finally made arrests and were charging 3 men in connection with the murder of 26-year-old India Kinnamore and her unborn son. The 3 men include Kayvon Warren, Robert Irving, and Lamar Morris Suggs. News of the arrest sent shockwaves through the Cincinnati, Ohio community, because in that 2-year waiting period, people had genuinely lost their faith that this case would ever be solved. However, India's mother, Terry Kinnamore, had always known and kept the faith. In a Fox 19 interview, Terry is seen sitting beside India's tombstone and expresses how she never gave up and that she was able to come back to India's final resting place and let her know who did this to her.
I'm able to come back and tell her that the people that did this to her, they have been caught and justice will be served.
While echoing the sigh of relief, India's mother is also undoubtedly hurt, upset, and frankly in disbelief that anyone would ever do such a thing. And she's made sure to highlight that this didn't just happen to India, it also happened to her unborn child.
Son or plotted to kill his own son. He's been out for 2 years while this investigation is going on, while my daughter and his grandson are resting in a grave. I don't think he should see the light of day until this case is solved.
India's mother only knew Kayvon out of the 3 people that were charged, and her impression of Kayvon was that he was just a nice, upstanding gentleman. However, we all now know the opposite. Terry Kinnamore said that Warren's lack of concern about the status of the investigation was always a red flag. He didn't really seem to care. And as for the alleged perpetrators, police revealed that the shooting wasn't a random act, but planned and calculated. Kayvon actually took bereavement leave from his job prior to the actual killing of India, but also there being evidence of the suspects shortly meeting prior to the shooting. Investigators believe that Kayvon Warren was a leading force orchestrating the murder and recruiting the 2 younger men to assist him. So what might be the connection between these 3 characters? Well, Kayvon and Robert are allegedly cousins or related in some sort of capacity as reported by Law and Crime article written on October 26, 2025. However, with Lamar Morris Suggs, there's still no confirmation of any familial relation or whether he just might have been a friend of some sort. But my theory, and I'm just speculating here, is that he was perhaps a friend of Robert since they're closer in age. Now, reports allege that the suspects entered India's home through the back door while she was asleep, firing multiple shots before ultimately fleeing the scene. Remember, her son was in the house. And what's even more disturbing is that the men staged the scene to look like a burglary gone wrong. This was a sick attempt at trying to cover up the truth and throw off the investigators. But through diligent detective work, including review of all electronic communications, including phone records and surveillance footage, the authorities were able to piece together what exactly happened that night. At this point, we've covered the who, the what, and the when, and the where, but we haven't exactly talked about why. Why would Kayvon feel the need to kill? I mean, at some point we can assume that he loved this woman, right? They were together for a while, possibly for a few years. And I think it's safe to assume that because he already had children of his own, as we've seen on his social media, that there's not necessarily an aversion to him having children. So why? It just doesn't make any sense. Investigators, while searching for the potential motive, as stated in the Hamilton County Prosecutors Office's press release, say that they learned that Warren had pressured Kinnamore to have an abortion, but the law prevented it. At the time, he was involved with another woman and facing financial hardship, including the loss of his home. In other words, we can simply interpret this as him believing that the source of all of his problems in life was India Kinnamore. He didn't have any money, and he was dealing with a new woman in his life. And maybe that woman wasn't aware that he was expecting a child with his ex. Now, remember, this is all speculative, but we do know he was broke, for sure. As most of us know, having a baby on the way could potentially put a new relationship in danger. And maybe by the time he found out India was pregnant, it was already too late in the state of Ohio to have a legal abortion. So unless there was extenuating circumstances where a doctor determined that it's necessary to protect the life of the pregnant person, it wasn't gonna happen. Also, India just could have wanted her baby. She could have wanted to go through with the pregnancy, which is understandable. There was no convincing her otherwise. She was happy about this. But the key here is instead of him manning up and taking personal responsibility for his actions and life circumstances, he did the worst thing imaginable. And his cowardice took 2 innocent lives. This is why it's so imperative to seek out community and resources when dealing with domestic violence cases. So where are we in this case right now? Well, in the aftermath of the arrest, the prosecutors revealed the charges. The 3 men were indicted on a total of 13 counts, including 4 counts of aggravated murder, along with murder, felonious assault, burglary, and several weapons charges. According to reports, one of the suspects, Lamar Morris Suggs, was already serving a 3-year prison sentence on an unrelated weapons charge. So he was already in jail for something else when this indictment was announced. As of today, there's no official trial date, but proceedings are expected to begin in the coming months as justice moves slowly sometimes. For India's family, this marks a step toward closure. But that doesn't necessarily mean their pain won't linger on. India will continue to be missed and loved by family and her friends. And it's important that we don't lose sight of the humanity of this woman. She isn't just a headline. She was a mom, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. May India rest in peace. And may justice be served on her behalf. My name is Naja Hall, and if you enjoyed this episode, then I would love it if you like, shared, and subscribe. We're just a very small team over here that keep these productions running. So the main currency that you can show of support is engaging in the community, leaving a comment, please subscribing, and make sure that you hit the notification bell because I post videos like this every single week. I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time.